My pleasure to welcome the great governor of the state of California, Gavin Newsom.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your leadership. I want to underscore that, and I will in the course of my remarks. Let me contextualize this moment, and we will have ample opportunity to answer all your questions related to the Grand Princess and the logistical operation that is currently underway. But I want to just update you on the latest numbers of positive tests in the state of California, number of people we're monitoring, and how we're doing with our testing regime. Currently, 114 people have tested positive in the state of California. We have identified one individual, as you know, in Placer County, that is deceased related to the virus. As you know, he was on this same cruise ship in the previous cruise that went from San Francisco down to Mexico on February 11th to the 21st. We are monitoring some 1,540 individual Californians that were on that original cruise. Currently, we have identified 12 individuals on that cruise that now have identified as positive for COVID-19. Again, that number is fluid. That's the number we have from this morning. Of course, we'll be updating you on a daily basis. Broadly, the state of California has over 10,000, in fact, 10,257 individuals that we are monitoring in 49 health jurisdictions throughout the state that have come in independently of our repatriation flights and independently of the cruises through commercial airlines. So I want to give you the magnitude of the people we're monitoring and the incredible effort that is underway at all levels of government in a state, for those not familiar, that has 58 counties and some 480 plus or minus cities. And so this has taken all of us to work together in a deeply collaborative way, and I'm very grateful for all of our partners, particularly in the health care sector, for their stewardship. And now let's go back to the issue at hand. The Grand Princess currently is some 10 to 12 miles offshore. And I say 10 to 12 because we're moving it back within that footprint. Roughly 2.5 hours away when they have the green light to come in to the Oakland port. We are not prepared to tell you exactly when, and for those passengers that may be watching this, we are not able to tell you exactly when the cruise ship will come into the port, as we are still working out the enormity of complexity of making sure we prepare the site and, moreover, prepare for quick turnaround and quick boarding of individuals to respective locations, which I will talk about in a moment. We want to make sure that all of that is locked in before the ship comes to port, which I think would just create more anxiety for the passengers and, moreover, for the general public. The site was picked. Oakland was picked for a number of reasons. We assessed many different sites throughout the state of California. Active military bases, unfortunately, are not positioned, particularly with a foreign flag cruise ship, as the appropriate site. We looked for mothball old sites, including Alameda. We had originally looked at Alameda as a preferable site, the old naval station there. Unfortunately, some of the silting issues, some of the drafting issues created some concerns, and that site was knocked off the list. Some have suggested, because it's based in San Francisco, this cruise ship, that San Francisco and the port should assume this repatriation effort. That was assessed. The logistics of that site along the Embarcadero, the proximity to residences, the disruption that would have ensued was such that we determined that was not the appropriate site. Other sites across the state of California were considered in the southern part of the state. And again, by multitudes of assessments, we felt better and more appropriate to have it here in Northern California for reasons I will lay out in just a brief moment. This site allows us a number of advantages. Number one, the ability to secure the site. The site is currently being secured. It's being fenced, and it's being secured by federal personnel. Roughly 10 acres of this site. The site is currently being cleared. We have a number of vehicles on that site, leased vehicles, the ability to contact the individuals that own those vehicles, to look at the existing contracts, to waive the provisions of the contracts, to provide ample opportunity to move those vehicles, presented a logistics opportunity, and we are currently executing that opportunity. The site being cleared is happening as well in real time as it's being secured. But the site offers a number of benefits. Number one, proximity to the Oakland airport, which will provide us the ability to allow foreign passengers on this crew to be repatriated in their home countries, at least in specific terms, to Canada and other chartered flights that are currently logistically being prepared. There will be no contact with the general population and terminals at the Oakland airport. This will all be separate, and all of these individuals are being processed in partnership with the State Department and others for those chartered flights. So that was one benefit of this Oakland site. Number two, proximity to Travis Air Force Base. As many of you recall, the state of California since, late December, but more formally late January, was the state that has provided the most support for the United States and U.S. citizens that were overseas to repatriate them with direct flights. A number of those direct flights went into Travis, into Miramar in Southern California, and Marsh and also in Southern California, but more broadly defined as parts of Riverside. Those operations were successful. The logistics and the preparation of those sites are such that they are advantageous in terms of our repatriation now of this cruise ship. So the opportunity for us in this region, near Travis, near Solano County, Oakland's uniquely positioned to quickly move those passengers to be quarantined disproportionately at Travis, but a number of them possibly down at Miramar. So let me break this out and try to create some sequencing so that people have some clarity. The ship will come in sometime tomorrow. The expectation is to determine what the best cross-current conditions are, as well as tidal conditions, to create the opportunity to have a window for a ship this size to come into a port where it's typically not being docked. I can bore you with the technical details, but anyone that understands this space, no one better than our bar pilots that need to go on to the ship with the appropriate protective gear that needs to be fitted, and making sure that they have the opportunity to have those windows where they have confidence. Those are windows that are typically just a few hours. So in the morning, make up a time, 3 to 6, and then 2 to 4, whatever they may be. There'll be windows, and you'll hear more about those. I'm making those up, but you get a sense of the windows that will avail themselves tomorrow as it relates to cross currents and tides. So that's why we can't give you a specific time. But we anticipate the ship coming in tomorrow. We are also taking care in the immediate term, not only determining when the ship comes in, but providing the opportunity for triage that we will be conducting in the next few hours to occur before the ship arrives. We have what we call these hasty teams that are going to be making their way onto the ship anywhere around 3 p.m. West Coast time today. They will be triaging the passengers. They'll be getting a better sense through screening, through interviews of the needs of the passengers, and that will allow us better preparation on the port property in anticipation of their arrival tomorrow. I want to remind people that are rightfully concerned about the passengers, as all of us are, that the passengers assumed that they would be back home already. Many of them came with medications for the period of time they thought they would be on board, and those medications are also being provided to the extent they already have been. In some instances, people have already been a beneficiary of medications, but obviously with the new medical personnel going on, those will be secured this evening as well. We will move forward by prioritizing those that are most acute. First tranche of people that will come off the ship in a rapid manner will be those that are symptomatic and those most in need of medical support. Those that are in need of hospitalization, and that is a number that needs to be determined, will be sent to appropriate medical facilities in and around the region, and those protocols are well underway for those that we are currently providing care for throughout not only Northern California but the state of California. Next group of people will be California residents. There are currently 2,421 passengers on this ship, 1,113 crew members in addition to those passengers. Some 962 of those passengers are based on our manifest California residents. They will be prioritized, and those California residents will be secured, boarded onto appropriate vehicles, and brought again with priority to Travis Air Force Base to begin a 14-day quarantine. Those non-California residents, as I mentioned a moment ago, those that are foreigners, some 54 countries represented in total. That includes crew and passengers. We will be providing those charter flights for the largest cohort of those passengers as another priority to move them forward. Non-California residents, American citizens, will be transported to other locations, a disproportionate number into Texas, Oakland, and into base in Georgia. So that's the current protocol, and that's the current expectation of prioritization and the distribution of where individuals will be sent. There is one cohort, rather significant, again, 1,113 crew members, of which 19 of the 21 that were tested positive are crew members. We will quarantine them, as you may have heard, it's been publicly stated, on the ship. That ship, after all the other passengers have been attended to, that ship, once quarantined with the remainder of the crew that are appropriate to remain on the ship, that ship will now turn around outside of the San Francisco Bay, no longer in the port of Oakland. This entire operation, we hope, but this is dynamic, so do not hold us to account, is a 2-3 day process. That's what we believe this turnaround will take. That's based on our preparation, and that's why we ask just patience as we prepare the site and make sure the screening is appropriate and to make sure that we have all the logistics at hand so that we're doing this in an appropriate way. It's ready, aim, fire, not ready, fire, aim. And I cannot impress upon you my appreciation, can impress upon you more my appreciation to our federal partners, the incredible work of the CDC, HSS, the White House, the Vice President himself, individually working. We had 3 conversations in the last 24 hours directly, the President direct conversations, the incredible partnership, of course, with our teams at the state level, and here locally, the incredible leadership of Mayor Libby Schaaf. And let me just end on that point. This would not have happened without leadership. Some folks turn their backs in times of distress and times of stress. The political answer is oftentimes to abdicate responsibility and accountability. That is not exampled here in Oakland. What you see next to me is a leader that was willing to take responsibility for those in need, take responsibility for American citizens, take responsibility for Californians, take responsibility for many that may end up being residents of her own city in this broader county. I applaud her, and I just want all of you to recognize that she was not required to be put in this position, but she did the right thing, and I cannot be more grateful for her willingness to partner with us in good faith, but with deep expectation of accountability from each and every one of us at all other levels of government. We today have with us a number of other people that will speak, and someone's become familiar to all of you, the HSS Secretary in the state of California, Dr. Galley, who many of you may not know, was working in the health department in the city and county of San Francisco for years, went down to LA County to run their department, and now is the state director. Dr. Angel is here from the Department of Public Health, and we are blessed to have Dr. Red here. Dr. Red is a familiar name for those that have tracked previous cruise ship incidences, substantively the one in Japan. He was disproportionately responsible for that process and the protocols around that. He can discuss and compare and contrast what makes this different and what we learned from Japan and why we are moving quickly to get people off this ship. And I think will give you a sense of confidence in our capacity to meet this moment in a way that could calm people's nerves. Final point. I'm happy at the right time to discuss the inevitable, and that is concerns and anxieties we have around public events and venues in the state of California and public schools in the state of California. Yesterday, we put out guidelines for both. We'll be meeting with superintendents from across the state tomorrow in Sacramento to further those discussions with more nuance and specificity and detail. And anyone that wishes to request any additional information, we're happy to also provide that, as that is, as a father of four, a conversation I am having often and understandably. Accordingly, each city across this state has also adopted protocols on public venues that is also increased the level of inquiry in that space, and we will happily answer our point of view for the same. So that's where we are in broad strokes. And now with more logistics around the medical component of this, let me ask Dr. Galley to come up, and you'll hear from a few others, and then we're here to answer any questions, including from the Assembly Member Bonta, who's kindly here. Just one moment.